those of you that don't know me, I'm Jerry Mahoon. I'm three times retired, and now I'm headed down this road type of thing. I've been in surveying education since 1979. I've taught various institutions around the country. I've also worked with BLM, NGS, and in private consulting, as well as Wisconsin Department of Transportation. So I've been around for a while.
That's awesome. I'll just jump in real quick. So again, same thing. Trent Keenan. I'm based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, licensed in multiple Western states. But for me, the ultimate goal is providing this platform, especially now kind of taking the new format with Roundtable Tuesdays to more specific to sole practitioners or those you guys always hear me talk about. There's 60+ percent of the surveying firms in the country have less than 5 employees, which means there's one LS making the decision, and unless he's got a good support or mentorship that he can reach on, he's making those sole boundary decisions. And so I'm always supportive of trying to find a community like this to be able to bring those to and help keep people from not getting in front of state licensing boards. So, but that's the ultimate goal out of this whole thing is, and then of course, just pushing on the expertise and the wisdom before we lose, thousands and thousands of years of institutional knowledge before they retire in the next 5 to 7 years. So
Yep.
there you go. And then Jay has his camera on, and Jay likes to be a kind of part of these conversations. So Jay, you want to introduce yourself there?
Yeah, my name is Jay Seymour. I'm Redondo Beach, California. I work for the county surveyor in Orange, and I'm retiring March 28th for the second time. And even better than my good friend Jerry here, I'm moving to South America. So my commute's going to be large to come back here. But I began my career in 1969. I hold 3 licenses, third generation land surveyor. I've also been on the speaking tour, done 6 state conferences. I done everything in California. Was the past president with that young man there. We both did 2015 together.
Okay.
So I've been doing it a long time, but I'm going to walk away. 55 years is enough, and now they're going to pay me to speak, and that makes me very happy. So.
You're up, Kyle.
Yeah, I guess I'm the last one with camera on. My name's Kyle Brook. Unlike I think the rest of the people who've spoken so far, I was born in 1992, a little bit after practice had started for some of these people. So relatively young surveyor statistically, and licensed only, I think, 2 to 3 years ago, and more was just looking for a way to find mentorship and talk to other surveyors. I've been a survey nerd from the beginning, just always wanted to learn more about it, and I was able to do that through Mentoring Mondays and a lot of other things. So glad to be here. At this point, I own and operate a very small company, Confluence Land Surveying, always trying to find other people to talk with on these things. Surveyors are very set in their ways on all sorts of stuff. So when this opportunity came up to, basically talk with other people about, hey, what would you do in this situation? I mean, that is worth, that's worth everything to me. So that's what I'm excited to do today. I've got a presentation that is my very first survey, boundary survey as a licensed surveyor in the state of California. And I found a very fun little problem, and I'm excited for you guys to tell me, hey, I wouldn't have done it that way or whatever. So,
I did reach out to Ian after you sent your sample problem, and I tried to get Ian to jump on here tonight. I actually sent him an email. I'm like, I know you're finished as of Friday. He's actually already finished now, but finished as of Friday. I hope you're not riding off into the sunset. But I wanted to kind of get him on tonight, but he hasn't read the email yet. So
you'll see his stamp today.
I know, that's why I quickly reached out to him. So
I spoke with him about it, and what he would do, and I know exactly what Ian would do. I'm not sure if I would do things the same way today. It's so all of these things, when you get into, Jerry does a lot of test prep stuff. I'm getting into test prep stuff, and you have to have a clear, correct answer on those.
Yeah.
And in the real world, every situation is a snowflake, right? Everything is different, no matter where you are. The evidence is different everywhere. So it's just cool to be able to, potentially talk about a bunch of problems. And I'm hoping people will bring their boundary problems and say, I don't even know where to go with this. What can we do? And
Yeah. And I think that's, like you kind of alluded to, the cool part, even this was a couple of years survey and you came up with the decision then, but you may not come up with the same decision today. Right. And so that, I mean, that's always kind of the fun part with a lot of these boundary problems too. So.
One of the things that differs between education and real world is in education, you've got a fixed environment within which to work and solve your problems and that type of thing. And to kind of introduce the students to the fact that that's not the way the real world is, I would always give them problems on my exams to have a lot more information on what they needed to solve the problem. And it would be interesting to see how some people would try to use every bit of information I gave them to try to solve the problem.
When they only needed a squared plus b squared.
It did not realize you got to sift through the wheat and the chaff. It's like that in the real world,
Yeah, that's awesome.
do you want to see if anybody else wants to chime in? You don't need a camera to
Introduce myself. Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
go for it, Ricky.
I just want to introduce myself. My name is Ricky Mwanza. I've been surveying since 1985, so this will be my 40th year. 20 of those years I spent in Africa, and I relocated to the US 18 years ago. And 2 years ago, I decided to get licensed. So I'm licensed in Maryland. I just want to express my appreciation to what you're doing, Trent, and everybody else. I've learned quite a lot from Mentoring Mondays and the book study. So I appreciate. I'm quiet most of the time, but I thought this is an opportunity for me just to introduce myself. I follow what you do all the time. I'm so grateful. And I did a lot of boundary surveying in Zambia. I would say 80% of the work that I did in Zambia was boundary surveying. But now that I'm working as PLS in Maryland, just want to retool myself so that at least I'm relevant and I follow what is being done in Maryland and learn from all of you. Thank you so much.
That's awesome. Great stuff, Ricky. Thanks for
Hi.
chiming in.
My name is Lauren, and I just met Kyle. I don't know, a couple weeks ago. I've surveyed with Unico out of Folsom, California, for a couple years. Was mentored by a surveyor, and then I took a break and helped a company with recruiting surveyors. So that was fun. I was helping recruit surveyors across the U.S. Made about probably around 60 placements between party chiefs, PLSs, and survey techs. And now I'm back surveying in California, and decided to take my LSIT in November, passed it, took my PS, passed it, and I just got approved by the board today to test in April. So it's
Heck yeah.
been going very quickly.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, thank you for doing this. This is exciting.
And hopefully Kyle has all the information to get you to pass that monster
Oh,
of a
yeah.
California exam.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. Anybody else? If not, somebody. Oh, there you go.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yep.
Hello, well, my name is Mal Peralta. I'm currently working for the County of Orange. Hopefully you can see my picture. And I've seen some of you in the CLA conference in Las Vegas, in Reno. And obviously I know Jade because he's a coworker of mine. He's a great boss and leader. Thank you, Jade, for the invitation. And I'm an LSIT trying to become an LS. And I passed it back in 2009. It's been a while. Not to mention I'm born in 75, so Kyle, you say you're born in 92? Wow, that's great. You're a youngster.
A baby.
Baby, yes. Anyway, like I said, my name is Mal Peralta, County of Orange. Obviously, definitely would like to be in this class or seminar, and I'm willing to learn. Any homework, anything, questions, please let me know.
Nice.
Or if I can contribute with anything, I have been doing seminars. I'm currently also involved with the San Diego LS Review every Thursday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. And they always have a new topic to discuss every Thursday. So thank you. Keenan.
Do you are you doing Kyle's daily quiz or any of his stuff?
No.
Okay.
No,
I'm
not that yet.
gonna shoot that in the chat so you can grab it.
Perfect. Perfect, brother. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We're hopefully going to get James to start helping me out with some questions, so I don't have to always be struggling to find a new idea or releasing old questions. So
Nice. There you go. And then James jumped in on the chat and said he doesn't have a mic. So, but he's sitting for the California exam in April as well. So
he's got a mic. He just don't want to use it. It's one of those Madonna ones.
and Jerry, I have shoes older than most of you guys. I love it. That's awesome. You should be good to share your screen whenever you're ready to go, Kyle, too. So
Cool. I will just take off right away then. Let me see. Can we see my screen?
good to go. Yeah,
Okay.
you're good to go there.
Sweet. Just to ward off any misunderstandings, a lot of what I will be talking about today for this should not be what you think about when you are sitting for that test. So any of these tests, the test taking, like we were talking about earlier, it is something that is, you have a clear right answer. There is a very limited amount of information you are given. You are placed in test world and you need to do what test world says to get the right answer. What I'm going into is basically what happens when you actually get into the real world. And I'm sharing the wrong screen. So 1 second.
I was gonna say you had the presentation slide up, but
I don't even know how to do these things.
yeah,
Okay, you should be looking at a forest, right?
we have the forest.
Sweet. Let's see. Now you can hopefully see the slide.
Good to go.
Excellent. And maybe we'll get that out of there. Cool. So we already did introductions. I just like this slide a lot because I always ask myself, who am I? But if you need to reach me at any time, I do some test prep material. If you want to tell me how wrong I am about any of these things, you're welcome to. I am, like a lot of surveyors, very argumentative. So and never in a pissy way. It comes off that way a little bit sometimes. But more than anything, I just love to argue and discuss these issues, and that's why I'm excited to be here talking about 2709 Dwight Way, Berkeley. So my very first record of survey, only a few years back. Very interesting place, very interesting part of the world. If you aren't familiar with Berkeley, California, it has a reputation that frequently precedes it, but essentially it is a college town intermixed with all sorts of people from all walks of life, and it is a very very old part of California. Much of this part of California was here being subdivided or owned in some way, shape, or form prior to statehood. So, this is the Bay Area, California. Gold was discovered where I'm at right now, but people came over by boat, by land, by all sorts of methods, and started the gold rush of 1849 after gold was discovered, and people were coming through Berkeley like crazy. It blew up quick, and you have a lot of crazy problems with legal descriptions as a result. We have a deeded parcel that I'll show you in a little bit, being, deeded portions of a subdivision map recorded in 1868. We've got monuments and parcel maps all over the place, but nobody has either wanted to or decided to or been able to survey an entire block on this block. So you'll hear me talk a lot about our 3 streets here, College Avenue, Hayes Street, Dwight Way, and then Piedmont Avenue to the east. And that's kind of where we're looking at the highlighted property there, 2709 Dwight Way, very old property. I think, in fact, the first property on this block, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, next to a parking lot and a couple frat houses now. But yeah, I just stumbled right into a fun little problem that I have resolved, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think. If you have questions along the way, just, cut in, or, Trent, let me know if something shows up in the chat. I can't see it anymore.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm just interested to hear what questions you have. I'm going to present the facts of the case, the evidence that was found, what I know. I couldn't get it all in here, and I'm trying to fly through this, to be honest, because I want to get to the discussion. I don't want you to hear me talk for 2 hours. Poor James, he has to hear that. He gets that all day. So, yeah, basically we are, here's our assessor parcel map. So not a lot of useful information. And yes, the assessor parcel map did cut off College Avenue like that. You can see that there's a parcel map in the middle of the block, but 2709 Dwight Way, assessor parcel 01111, is just not a lot of information there. This is typically where we'll start. One other caveat about this: these are California laws we're talking about. So I think we are, Californians are dominating this meeting, which, go us. But, some of these things, like, we were talking about with Jerry at the beginning, might not apply to everyone. But I will do what I can to talk about what I know for California law. And I'm, just one person, and, seeking expertise, just like everyone else. What we know from this specific property is that there are centerline monuments placed by the city and accepted by surveyors in the county in College Avenue and Dwight Way. So College Avenue is typically in this area defined by centerline monuments placed in the street, monument wells, and Dwight Way, the same thing. 3 monuments go up the middle of it, and they all line up pretty well. And then Hayes Street up at the north has no monuments that show us where Hayes Street is. There are no county monuments there. And Piedmont Avenue, it's got the same, not a lot of definition. You'd be trying to recreate that, and you'll see me not do that as part of this survey because, I'm no superhero. That would be even tougher than the problem I ran into. Other than that, there are curbs, sidewalks. This is a fully, walkability scored area. It's not like where I live now on dirt roads. You have concrete sidewalks. You have, college kids, people on bicycles, all sorts of things going through the streets, fully built up, and lots of options. Our legal description, and you do not need to read it all or remember it all or try to draw it up in CAD and do the math yourself. Basically, it's just a portion of lot 52, block C, and that's a recorded map. It's a map that is called the Berkeley property, situated between the University of California and the State Deaf, Dumb, and Blind Asylum, which is what Cal Berkeley used to be. It started out, it's gone through several iterations, but University of Berkeley, California has had a couple, it's been around longer than California has been a state, and it's got a lot of interesting things going on there. But this map, recorded in 1868, shows block C. And can you guys see my mouse? Is that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So block C's down here, and we've got the S.H. Willie property. I don't know if it's Wiley or Willie, but S.H. Willie, one of the founders of Berkeley, Cal Berkeley, University of California. And this is block C. This is Channing Way. That is not Haste. Haste is somewhere in here. Audubon Street later became College, and Piedmont Way, I cut off a bit of it, it's there. And this is kind of the typical thing you would get if you were to reach out to the city of Berkeley and say, hey, what do you know about this area? They send you some monument cards. You'll see some other non-recorded surveys they have on file from surveyors who, you know, passed away and their loved ones just sent the city a bunch of their old maps. Lots of unrecorded maps out here. Lots of things like this where you see a centerline monument, a couple funky offset items, but really, you know, showing that people rely on these centerline monuments. And I've got a history link here. Let's see if it'll, well, actually I should be able to pull it up if I can find my screen. I can't. So I'm going to cancel and join again real quick. But basically, the S.H. Wiley or Willie property, you know, this is the oldest property on the block. And as part of this, I find it very useful sometimes to pull up Sanborn maps and figure out which buildings were there at different times. You can get these through the Library of Congress. Sanborn maps are not survey maps, but they are maps that, and this is a really bad copy. They are beautiful maps. I just didn't have the, you know, time or energy to put them all together for you. But basically, there were fire insurance maps that were done at various times to figure out where buildings were. And, you know, these are dating from around 1911, I think. Depends on which one, but they were done between the late 1800s and early 1900s in the Bay Area. And this purple house is the historic house, the Willie House on Dwight Way. No longer there. It got torn down in, I think, the 30s. And there's some just really interesting history there. It's what I love about surveying is I can kind of dive into these things too far, so much that I become unbillable and have to start my own company. The only reason I started my own company was to get away from having to be, you know, billable all the time. So, this is kind of a very, very loosey-goosey survey record of some of the non-recorded blocks or properties, sorry, non-recorded surveys on the block. And you can see that College Avenue is, you know, got a couple surveys at the south end. Hayes does some surveys along it, and, you know, basically over a period of about 50 years from the late 1800s, mainly through 1900 to 1950, lots of non-recorded things out here. And they set stakes. I don't know if we can see it anywhere on here. I think maybe at the bottom. Sometimes they say what they set. Usually they're just wood stakes. There's no chance you find them. Sometimes they're nails. Sometimes they're, you know, nails and fence posts. By the time I got out there, none of this was there. The best chance you have is finding a cross in walk, like you can see on the upper portion of the screen. You know, these crosses are chiseled crosses, and they're, you know, in the walkways. You can find those sometimes. In this case, we found none of them, but crosses in sidewalks last a long time. Crosses in tops of curbs are very common out there, and sometimes it's all you get in terms of boundary evidence. This is just 4 local maps kind of showing you what has been the norm for a very long time in this part of the world, which is to, well, everyone's got a different name for it. The top left parcel map shows 2 monuments and holds record 200 feet away, headed south. One on the right, it actually has 2 monuments. I cut off the one to the north because I didn't want to put the surveyor's name on there. But yeah, 2 monuments, not aligned with the block, extended over and used to build. This is the block to the north, and then there's another cross found, and, you know, plenty set off of that. So, you know, I don't know what was held. I don't know what wasn't. I just know that, you know, 2 monuments held, and, you know, everything's pretty much typically record off of there. Bottom left, same thing. We have 3 monuments, you know, tying and holding that for, you know, holding record off of that. What the deed says goes in a lot of these cases. You are lucky if you find a map that has put together the whole block in some of these places from that period of the, you know, 90s, and I'm talking about the 1990s. I mean, typically in the last 50 years, we have not had a lot of very, very robust surveys done. On average, it's easier to go out, find 2 county monuments, hold record. So survey evidence acquisition, total station, you know, traversed around the block, closed just fine, measured the monuments, searched for crosses, found a couple non-record crosses that weren't on those maps, didn't find any of the stakes that were set out there, you know, full search with calced points, just did everything we could to find everything we could out there. Located, you know, improvements, typically called curb splits. Didn't locate the buildings. So I didn't locate every building on the block. And I know Ian Wilson has had a presentation on this same part of the world and how he would take a scanner down the block in the back of a truck. So they have this scanner they put in the back of the truck, they go down the block and they say, hey, every building was built 5 feet from the property lines. And I say to Ian, I can't afford that scanner. I would love to scan that whole block and use it to recreate some of these boundary things. It's not in the cards yet. And I don't think in this case, many of those buildings are original. There's maybe 2 to 3 original monument or original buildings, and those buildings were built after the properties were conveyed. And so as a result, we have a property, 2709 Dwight Way, our subject property, that was the original house on the block. Curbs were put in after that house was there. Then other buildings were built as those parcels got sold away from the parent parcel. And so lots of question marks as to what happened when. And as a result, we did a chain of title on this property to start to try to get to the bottom of our findings.
Hey, Kyle.
Yes.
Since you brought up Ian's thing, I just threw it in the chat, and for those that watch later, it's Mentoring Mondays week 97. Simultaneous conveyances and how they were created. So he goes into that whole presentation about how he scanned you know, whole neighborhoods and stuff like that for recreation. So I just want to throw that in while you talked about it.
Yeah, he does a great job explaining why boundary surveys in the Bay Area should be tens of thousands of dollars at least, even if the land wasn't valuable. It's just the legal descriptions here are crazy and overlapping and leaving gaps behind, and that's what we found. So our legal description, which came over a set distance, parallel with College Avenue off of Dwight, came over only so far. And then from the other direction, I believe it was 100 feet over from the other street, Haste, and everything's supposed to be at these perfect angles, perfect 90-degree angle relationship between Haste and College Avenue. And, you know, we found basically, if you were to measure the curb splits to determine the location of Haste, which was our property to, I'll try to go back for us here. Curb splits for Haste and College Avenue Mons and Dwight Avenue Mons, we basically found that those 3 pieces of evidence left an 8/10 gap between Haste Street and Dwight Way. So College Avenue is supposed to be 200 and I think it's 232.64 according to every deed. If this was a perfect world, every single deed would fit together perfectly because they all call for the same distance. They all have right angles or parallel. And so everything would be exactly as it's supposed to be if we lived in this little perfect world that our assessor map believes we live in. Unfortunately, when we surveyed it, we found out that the world is less perfect than it seemed. And yeah, that's what we know so far. I've got a couple potential resolutions that I want to talk with you guys. I flew through that. I've got my record of survey here that we can talk about a little bit, and you can figure out what information you want to, you know, ask. But there's all sorts of ways you could resolve this issue. If you have questions about what I just flew through, let me know. I want to answer this for you so that way you can see my boundary determinations. It's not the best record of survey I've ever done. It's also probably not the worst. But let me know if you have questions. Hey, did you think about doing this? Hey, would you consider holding this building? There's and I can pull up other things and show you different maps and stuff from the area if you have questions.
Kind of look at the record survey by itself.
It's
Think-
dense.
Take a couple minutes, yeah, and kind of thumb through that. But
Yeah, it's got. I'm never happy with my own work, and I'm always holding myself to. You get charged more per sheet, so.
exactly. Do you have a PDF that you could just like zoom in on just like the survey area?
Yeah. Let me
You can
get
probably
out
stop
of
sharing.
this.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the chat. I'll put this up here so you guys can all look at it. If I can figure out how to zoom in on it, I would. Or maybe I'll just pull up the PDF and you can look at that.
Yeah. Just allows everybody to kind of.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect idea. So here is the PDF in the image, and I will drop it in the chat in about 15 seconds. Once I figure out where I saved it yesterday. I have to figure out where the chat is too. I've lost it at this point.
Probably move to the top for your ribbon bar. I would bet, yeah.
I don't know. I can find everyone's faces and that, but oh, I see. Gotcha. Cool. It's
I
also
guess-
you guys
Go
can pull it off of the website too. It's a recorded map now.
Yeah, there you go. So I guess I'll just kind of start with the conversation. You have the three monuments controlling Dwight, which is you got, yeah, there you go. So Dwight is controlled, and then you have, how was the right of way established for Dwight? Was that part of that original plat, or did that roadway get cut out as well?
So Dwight, if I pull up our other map here, which Dwight is now basically established by county monuments. There's not a lot of get this over here. There's not a lot of other evidence for its location, and it coincides with that
It's
southern
locally.
line of that flat
Yep.
map we showed you here. So,
And then, yeah, I guess the question was, how was Dwight? How was that right away established?
gotcha. So Dwight, these both have monument cards in the city of Berkeley saying that this monument should be 35 feet from, at right angle measurement from the right of way line to the north. And if it's 60 feet wide, 20 feet, 25 feet the other way. And then this one's a little bit goofy. I wouldn't let it throw you off too much. Basically, you could consider this a monument that establishes the line of College Avenue. I found it to be 200ths off of where it was called for in the monument card. These two, so nothing. These two monuments, this line gets extended until it meets this line between these two monuments, essentially, to get this part of the block.
For those of us who are non-West Coasters, can you explain what a monument card is?
It seems to be not just a West Coast thing as much as it's a city of Berkeley thing and Bay Area thing. But
Okay.
our monument cards in the city of Berkeley, you email a very nice guy. I haven't worked in the area in 3 or 4 years now, so I don't know if he still works there, but he was the most helpful guy, Baird Barton in the city of Berkeley. Shout out to Baird. He very helpful. He would just send you all of the information the city had, including monument cards, which were when the city set these monuments, and every time they came in and reset them, they would leave notes and say where this was in relation to their right-of-ways. And so sometimes they're just as simple as this, where at Haston College, there's, things not found, and, it's literally a card of paper that has been taped over and is used to establish the right-of-ways in these downtown areas. You can see that this Dwight and College one, which you saw the bottom part, you can see how beat up it is because they come out of these old filing Rolodexes where they have all their information. And then in, just to the south in Oakland, they have, monument maps, that similar thing. They've got centerline monuments, and it shows you, how to establish the rights of way based on those monument locations.
Definitely, definitely a California thing. I'm sure Jay could probably even chime in some more with all the history in California, but there's lead and tax for tie distances that may be on corner records and certain things like that. So traditionally, I guess this would be the late 1800s corner records, right? So that's kind of the best way to describe it, I guess. But and then the ones Kyle did throw it in the chat, so you can download it and then zoom in on your own computer with the PDF, so you can obviously get a lot better view. And for those watching later, I will throw this in the Dropbox for documents that are associated with this video. But so for me, I was just kind of going backwards. Like, we've established Dwight and how it was created. You have your monument card. So now we have our basically the south line being the north right of way of Dwight established. And so then I would kind of work from College, left to right in that instance. And so looking to see what you established and how you controlled College. You had mentioned and you have it in your notes as well, but the 8/10, a tidal gap of 8/10 in magnitude in the block between Dwight and Haste. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so essentially, from this corner here to this corner here, we are supposed to be a distance of whatever my deed calls for, 132.64 plus 200. And in this case, you'll see that this is where we're going to start debating hard. This property that I'm over here, D3, is supposed to be, according to its deed, 50 feet wide. On top of that, I have 2 crosses, non-record, that are 50 feet wide. And this cross is about 8/10 from where I have put the center line of this block.
Yeah, so you have a dimension, and that, I guess the dimension on the 5082, that would be measured. That would be a measured distance then, or?
Yeah, it's the determined distance to this point here that is not the same as, I maybe could have benefited from a detail, but I was a little short on space.
We had to get the vicinity map in there.
So the 50.02 is between the 2 crosses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 crosses. They're both found on the top of the curb. These are old, very small chiseled crosses, no record, and almost exactly 50 feet apart.
I assume that's another city monument, the B0357.
Yes. Yeah, so these are all city monuments with associated information. There's actually another monument that I'll call out over here that is in Piedmont Avenue that has, according to the monument cards, no meaningful relationship. It talks about Hay Street, not at all. It just says that Hay Street's over that way. And so this is here. And I tied it in here, not to show how this street was established, but just so the next person who comes out this way doesn't have to figure out how that monument is related. Now there is a monument that is related to the rest of the block, and it's 26.66 feet from, there. Yeah. it's kind of a random monument, but it's there to be for Piedmont Avenue more than anything else.
I like the way you referenced him. We always just do like reference 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But I like how you kind of separated the deed references versus the map references. That's cool.
Yeah, more and more I do that because it came from two things. One, I think it clears it up when you're doing your references. Two, if you change a reference and add it in halfway through, you're not stuck messing with all your reference numbers. You just have to change half of them.
Yeah.
So I really like splitting up maps, deeds, and then in this case, I even did the two conveyances, the two original conveyances, because yes, they're deeds, but they're not the current grant deeds for the property.
Yep. So, and then I guess, so following along, College Ave, we're between two city monuments, so we would agree, you know, that you're gonna control College between the found city monuments. No one's gonna dispute that. And then the offset for the right of way is a known 54 feet per probably some monument cards or something, yeah?
Yes, yeah. So, you know, essentially, if I were to, and I've seen this only one time in Berkeley, looking at thousands of maps in Berkeley. Some guy who was a surveyor in Alaska, got licensed in California, came through and he called every single monument off and he held everything by curb split, which was a really cool, interesting idea.
No.
However, it fails to recognize that these monuments are, you know, what's called of common report now and county surveyor monuments. And it was really interesting, really cool map. I can't remember exactly where it is. I need to pull it up sometime, but
Oh my goodness.
interesting.
So then let's talk about coming down from the 4046. There's no reference there's no deed reference, no map reference. So how you're saying from that monument to center line of Hayes Street is 4046, where that would be, I guess the first question is where can you defend your creation of Hayes Street from that center line monument?
Sure. So Hay Street, and my county recorder has got rid of my lines here a little bit, but I did actually show, as Ian really likes showing curbs, I'm fine with just dimensioning it, but basically curb split, you know, meaning measurements on the face, the lip, the face of the curb, whatever you want to call it. Take all of those measurements on the oldest curbs you can find and use them on both sides to average in a center line of your street. And that's what this line is here. And it's just, you know, that's how that got in there. And that is how, and from that center line, 30 feet over to this right of way. Now, the problem is, and I think I even have a mislabel here. I think this is supposed to be a 4808 and it's showing 18. So there's a fun little error. There's a couple others you guys will find, and I'm sorry. Don't make me do a certificate of correction, please.
Ian's still county surveyor until Friday.
Oh, I'll cry. I don't have the time. But basically, you know, this line here, and the 4046, this is all here just so you can get to this monument if you're the next guy coming through.
Well, but it's really more than that, right? Because you're establishing a portion of that block C, and so that's why I was trying to I would work in and kind of constrain the block, and so that's why I was asking how you established haste, because then at that point you start building all of the deeds, right? The jigsaw puzzle part of it, and then we get into the junior senior rights from the creations of the deed recordings and stuff. Like that was where I was going with it in
so.
My conversation, but.
So this monument here on the monument card doesn't talk about a 4046. It doesn't talk about anything at all related to Hay Street. Hay Street got punched in later. You know, I think it came in like the it must have came in 1890s. But when they put this monument in, they did not talk at all about Hay Street. Nobody has ever said where Hay Street is besides holding record off of monuments that were to the north, and they built a record block and that's how they put in Hayes Street, and that ended up being, I think a 1/10.5 off of a random curb, random cross in a curb that was found. So I'm not a big fan of holding two monuments and extending them as far as we can go, but it is a very, very efficient way to survey.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to the, being city accepted monuments, and so you don't want to upset the apple cart when it comes to that. So I was trying to constrain the block, and so that was my question. And obviously you're Piedmont on the right side, so that one you'd already kind of mentioned you had some issues with, but so you kind of work with this section you got going on as I touch the screen so like everybody can see it, but the kind of that whole between Dwight and Haste and around your address. So now you start building those deeds, I guess. So
Exactly. And even if you were to basically, even if you were to hold Hayes Street in some different way, this cross right here is 5002. So if you wanted to hold this cross, you're not going to get your 8/10 back.
right.
So there is no real way to solve this, make this gap go away by surveying it differently. You could maybe, I guess, hold record from these monuments and go this way, but that's just pushing the air into a street that has been there for over 100 years. Somebody else did find this 8/10 of issue, and it's hard to see because this is a muddled, very over complicated map, but I have a deed to the north. D4 is two different sections, and each parcel on here, one of them is 100 feet, and then one of them is also 100.7 feet. So somebody was trying to correct it in a deed at some point, giving these guys that additional amount, funnily enough. But that's only this one parcel of D4 that's here. And I'm going to erase these red lines in a second so you guys don't have to look at all. But this one, they said, hey, the record for D4 is 100.7.
When you established that line of Hay Street, the south line of Hay Street, both the north and the south line are listed as derived from least squares regression of curve measurements.
Oh no, yeah.
How many shots we talking about along through that you did the linear regression with respect to this couple? There's a follow-up question on that.
I mean, so typically a curb sweat like this, and I can't remember exactly, but I would guess about 10 on average, up and down the face of the curb, trying to find, and we look at, there's some, and I've had this interesting conversation. I don't get to have it because I don't work anywhere with curbs anymore. But when I used to do this, some people would toss out a number from their regression saying, hey, that one's off by 1/10. Like, let's make this line fit really well. And they play with their numbers. And some people say, well, hey, the curbs are where they are. Use all the data you have and make your best fit line that way. And, it comes down to how much do you trust your own measurements? How much are the curbs actually?
Yeah, and it's also depends on how you do the linear regression. Now the bearing on both sides is different on both curb lines. How much does the width of the street vary across that entire length?
So from curb to curb, what are we? 36 feet.
This is 2666 center of the curb on both sides.
So it stinks because I had a beautiful little curb line, but I lost it to the county recorder. I've learned my lesson since. But that's what this is. So this isn't a mislabel. This is talking about the curb that is right here, and this is the other. So they're different bearings, and the average of those two is right here.
That's what I was getting at, because they're different. They're different bearings, so the width's not going to be constant between them.
Yeah. I was gonna say what's 10 seconds? Well, 10 seconds over 739 feet or 737, right? So not a lot of change in there.
No. Now, have you often done linear regression for curve fits like that?
I mean, I basically was trying to, and I might have got this wrong, but the attempt here was to just not just say curb split analysis, which
Right,
was
yeah.
everyone does. They say, I did curb splits. And so Ian was trying to say, you know, hey, you should try to tell people how to retrace this. And I was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm not gonna. And really what I was doing is, you know, best fit line, least squared adjustment in AutoCAD, right? So then looking at my data and, you know, trying to figure out how to build that.
Yeah, my only my comment or concern with respect to that is when people do linear regression, whether it's doing it in AutoCAD or doing it in like Excel or something like that, the problem is the linear regression uses one dependent and one independent variable, so it only minimizes some of the squares in one direction. And typically on a line that goes east-west, they're minimizing some of the squares in the y direction and not in the x direction. See what I'm getting at? Where true least squares would do it perpendicular to the line. Now, that's not going to make much of a difference on this, but where the difference becomes is if you're doing it a north-south linear regression, then you have to bias it in the other direction. But if you're going at 45 degrees, then what do you use as dependent and independent? It has to be perpendicular to the line. So it may make a little bit of difference. So you got to be careful on the linear regression because there's linear regression, there's linear regression. You know, so when you talk about least squares fit, a true least squares fit would be perpendicular residuals, residuals that are perpendicular to the line as opposed to in a north-south or the east-west direction.
Do you know which would be used by your typical set CAD softwares? Is it?
If it's just a straight CAD package, I'm assuming it's going to be biased in one direction or the other. I know that if you do a curve fit in our straight line linear regression in Excel, it's going to be using the x-axis as the independent axis and the y-axis as a dependent axis. So it always treats the independent axis as being error-free and all the error being in the dependent axis direction and the y-axis.
We're gonna have to send Brian at Carlson Support an email tomorrow. I'll CC you. I'm curious.
Because most of the things that do like a circular arc fit, by default, that's radial. Those are radial residuals. So that does in fact give you a true least squares fit. That doesn't make one independent or the other independent. But generally when you're dealing with linear, and that's why I get careful when using linear regression, that generally biases it in one direction versus the other.
I mean, I can go in this for quite a while. I've seen all sorts of different, like I've seen people,
yeah.
Their main method of curb splits was they didn't do a best fit of the curb. They would go here, they would walk across the street, go here.
Yeah.
And then take the midpoint and go to, you know, 4 other points on the block and make, yeah. And so
in essence, that's just recreate the center line and then establish the curb lines off of that center line.
Yep.
So basically do it the other way.
Yep. See, those are like those, let me let James in. Those, the conversations like Jerry just brought up, right? Like somebody, imagine being on the stand and you have Jerry as the expert witness on the other side of the trial, right? And those are the questions that we're just, oh, what CAD software, you know, did this, right? And so that's part of it goes back to the whole black box thing and understanding the stuff. And then the other thing I was thinking about earlier too, I mean, this one's fun because we get to kind of play Monday morning quarterback with this, right? And
Yeah.
so, as opposed to, you know, and maybe another scenario where we're trying to help somebody out down the road. But so these ones are always fun where we can play Monday morning quarterback. So I was going to go the next one for me, like now that we have the 3 streets defined, it's now you have the dimensions coming over from your east right away line of college. You've got 75 and 74, 72. And I'm assuming those distances are correlated with your D2 reference there. So we always, and I'm big on like record and measured. So we always, and then the measured would be based on a specific reference. So to help make our maps more defendable. And so, like how did those dimensions come about? I'm assuming those are the D2 dimensions, right? But
Yeah, so I've done this on subsequent maps where I basically say somewhere on the map that, look, if it doesn't have a, it's measured unless it's otherwise stated, right? Because then I've got reference on here.
would that
And
be in your notes? Would that be something you would put in your notes? Or?
I've done it in the notes on subsequent maps. I don't know if it's on this one or not. But then I don't have to put an M after every single one.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is nice to have that because I also will do a CD one sometimes because usually that's from an actual recorded map where I'll say like CR2 because it's calculated from R2. It's not actually shown on that map, but you can use coordinate geometry to figure that out because I've had county recorders say that's not shown on the map, and I go, but yeah, you can make a box and close the upper side, and so yeah, essentially our deed is starting at this corner, going up 75 feet, continuing 125.55 feet, and going around the box, and then I believe I'm not holding that 125.55 feet and doing 75 because the chain of title and mathematical closure indicated otherwise. Maybe the chain of title didn't, but I think to actually close this parcel in any way, shape, or form, that was the method to do it, and that would put this line exactly 200 feet from College Avenue. And so what you're going to see throughout my boundary determination is what I tell people to not do when they're sitting for these tests, which is do not read intent into any of these documents. And I go back and forth on it. Today, on what I would do, I do not know. I'd have to sit down and weigh all the evidence again. But, is the intent of the deed to have a perfect rectangle? Yes. But were they also probably trying to make it so they didn't have a million minuscule overlaps and gaps between all their neighbors? Yes. And so where is de minimis is kind of the question sometimes. And that's this survey in a nutshell is, at what point do you say, hey, that 8/10, we're not going to track down the original owner.
Well, and then I'm looking at now your exhibit on the parcel, and you've got obviously, you've got 12 foot as setbacks from property lines to building, and so that seems the dimensions that you've come up with seems to fit fairly well. Obviously, you're only measuring to the 10th, so it could be 1205 or it could be 1195 or something, right? But you've got a pretty square parcel to what, as Ian would describe, the foundation of the building, right? And so those are, I think, all helps defend. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and
defend your positions of the east and west lines. We've
yeah,
already established the south line.
It's such a struggle. And yeah, so Ian would say, and so, I came into Mentoring Mondays kind of at the same time I was trying to answer this question for myself while I was studying for a California specific exam. What do I do if I find a gap? Like, who does the gap go to? And Ian said one thing in a CLSA talk, and Dave Woolley said another.
Yeah.
And, they still don't agree. And there is still, I live somewhere between those two where sometimes I think, it shouldn't, there's nothing anywhere that says that the junior conveyance gets the rest if in the case of a gap. Skelton's book on boundaries and adjacent properties is probably the closest to saying something along those lines. Also a really good boundary book.
Well, what's his name? I missed his name. Lucas. His contention is that it always goes to the junior owner. And he's got case law for both Maryland and Illinois, I think, that shows cases for that. But if you look at Brown's textbook, in one place he says that it's not conveyed. Then in another place he says, depending on its size, it is either not conveyed or goes to the junior owner. And in Wisconsin, we actually have case law that says, doesn't matter who's senior, who's junior, you split it and half of it goes to one and half that goes to the other. So again, it depends on the particular situation and what the case law is in that area. So that's another one of those things where, you know, this, you get into that area of what's a matter of, excuse me, a matter of survey and what's a matter of title. When we talk about rules of construction, at the very top, you have adverse possession unwritten rights. We consider that a matter of title. That's not something that the surveyor determines. That's something that's legally determined by the courts. Then the third one you've got is written intentions of the party. That's the deed. That's what we deal with. So those are matters of survey. Well, right in between there, you've got junior and senior rights. The question is that middle one, is that a matter of title or is it a matter of survey? And what's his name, Alta and SPS, Gary Kent contends that that's a matter of title and that surveyors really shouldn't be determining that. Okay, so that's something that is a legal thing and not a surveying thing. So there's that gray area in there. So when you're only dealing with 8/10 of a foot, you can probably get away with making a decision one way or the other. But if you get something a little bit larger than that, and it doesn't take very much in an urban area like this for a small piece to suddenly be worth a whole lot of money. Okay.
This,
So the question then is how do you resolve those types of situations?
yeah, even 8/10 here, 8/10 of a foot across 125 feet, like it's additional property that can allow you to build a larger building potentially, or you know, changes what zoning restrict. Like it's a big deal. It was a big enough deal when I talked to this client to say, hey, you know, I'm looking into this. We need to go do a chain of title. It costs this much extra, you know, and he's like, let's figure it out. You know, that 8/10, if we can have it, like that would be crazy. You know, it would change our plans for this lot. And so I think like de minimis is getting smaller every day is what I think about. Like as land value increases, people are willing to fight over smaller and smaller amounts.
Yep.
Well,
I
I
also-
got,
Oh,
Kyle, I
sorry.
got a couple of questions for you.
Yep.
What element of 8762 are you using on your survey? I couldn't see it in the header up at the top.
8762A. No, just kidding.
Nice try.
I have once done 8762A. It's like I don't even think I need to file this. I'm just choosing to. Where are my notes on this thing?
I was asking while you're looking for that, you did also state that all bearings and distances shown should be considered measured unless what otherwise noted. So your next your next one down.
Ian probably asked that same question you did. So,
And the next follow-up to that, Kyle, is in your contract 8759, were you going to set monuments to delineate the property? I see no monuments set.
That was going to be my question too. I didn't see monuments either.
sorry, I didn't put them over here. I put them in the detail because I was out of space and didn't want to have to muddy the point, and maybe it made it worse. But we've got monuments here. And man, I've talked to a million county surveyors who would never do this, and I'm not sure how I feel about it today. I change my mind on it all the time. But brass tag set in a wall, brass tag and you know, cross in the curb, I believe.
Curb or sidewalk, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the curb. And then an iron pipe over here, and then iron pipes on 1 foot offset because this, you know, there was a failing retaining wall right here and they needed points to come back in. A lot of surveyors would not set a permanent monument on these points. They would set temporary markers and not call them monuments. And I've had a lot of debates about that. 877.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
People go back and forth. I've had county surveyors tell me not to do it. I've had county surveyors tell me that, you know, setting a monument on a line on a corner record means that you have to file a record of survey. You know.
So you don't have a witness or an actual for the northeast, northwest corners?
That was my question too.
The buildings are the corners essentially, as you know, as best as we can get it, but basically the building corner is right on top of it, and setting anything there was going to get you know, the plan was to tear down this carport, I believe, and put in additional living space. And so at this point I said, you know, I'm gonna let my points in the street and my monuments around the block serve, and the building is here and I'm saying where it is today and it won't be there tomorrow. And, you know, the client wants to come back and have points set so they can, you know, tie string to it. They are welcome to, and we'll do a corner record then.
Okay, thank you. Good answer.
What else you got on that, Jay? As far as obviously,
Well,
just a 30,000 foot overview of the project, right? But
if you pull down, I'd like to see the upper left-hand corner of your drawing for a moment.
Oh no, do I have something in the margin?
No, not that problem.
yeah,
Since I do this for a living, your line type legend, you could cut that in half if you need more space. And also on your legend lines, I know you're jammed for space. I see these every day, but if you shrunk that down in your legend a little more, not so wordy or double line it or something, you'd gain space or more details if you need it. And I get this all the time from the young guys with CAD that slam everything on there and then they forget some important things like corners, references, boundary establishment, things that really, really, really will keep you out of trouble. So just an observation.
and to that point, Jay, it's like, what's an extra $500 to add a second page, right?
Absolutely.
Like, to be defendable and keep your tush out of trouble, what's an extra $500 at this point, and an extra, recording another second page of Mylar just to clean things up. So
my argument to that is that you know, every dollar counts to your clients, especially in small residential projects. The
Not at
smaller you are,
$500. No,
$500 can
I
add
can't-
up. And
can't give you that one, partner.
You could, as a county surveyor,
you have to sell it. You have to tell him what it is.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. They're thinking they're going to get 4 lines on a piece of paper.
Right.
Your boundary is an excellent from what I'm seeing. Remember, you have 100 hours on this. We have an hour.
Yep.
So I can't go into big detail, but don't ever tell me that you can't get the extra money because that I don't buy. You have to be a businessman before you go to the field or you're not going to make any money anyway.
so my argument.
Sorry, that's just my read.
Well, first, I think the solution between us is to do it the Ian Wilson way and allow for, you know, if Ian Wilson had a narrative that was 10 pages long, he said, I'm not going to charge you per sheet for that. You have to pay for the Mylar to be printed, but I don't mind if you.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
And so, you know, his solution was, do a narrative. I won't charge you an extra $500 to review words on a sheet. You know, you'll just have more space. For me personally, and this is not an Alameda County thing as much as just California in general. I run a small business and I am competing with illegal operators very frequently. Working for a small residential company, you have people who will go out and do this and they will not set monuments and they will tell no one they did it. And that survey is already cheaper than mine. And the more review fees go up, the more I cannot compete in any way, shape, or form. If they say, hey, you know, your survey is a couple $1,000s more, but I get a recorded map, great. If I say my survey is $10,000 more than that guy, you start to lose those things. And I can show you that because I have never worked a single job in Sacramento County, despite being right next door. The review fees are $2,000. You know, I hear from clients or from non-clients that, you know, hey, no, we found a guy who could do it for $2,000. And I say, he's not recording that map because it takes $2,000 to record that map. So if you want to hear me complain about that more, there's an issue in the California Surveyor coming out this winter that I wrote, and it's just me whining for like a page.
That's not the intent of the session, right?
I whine too much.
I get it. It is hard. And back to Jay's point from a business standpoint, right? And it goes back to the profession is educating the client. So it's that's the important part. But just because maybe most or some of us all have the PDF pulled up, can you go back to the legal description now? Because we scrolled through that so fast. I was racing. No, I know. Yeah, I was just kind of curious on what, like you said, how it was being.
And this is the most typical Berkeley legal description, you know, and these old Rancho lands. They subdivided portions out by, going along a right of way.
That's what I was wondering, double calls. And so I see it's beginning at a point on the northerly right of way and the distance of 75 feet from the easterly right of way. So you have a great starting point at that block corner. So that's why I was just kind of.
Oh yeah. Parallel and also at right angles. So everything's got to work out perfectly if you want no issues. And I think I have a note on that record of survey that says, look, we just called it, we said the intent was to come off of, these things at 90 degrees or parallel to minimize issues or something, because these blocks, they're supposed to be perfect 90 degrees. In a perfect world, they are not, or in a perfect world, they are, but in the real world, they are not. And so when you have these 90-degree corners with all these issues and, you can't have a parallel and right angle property.
Yeah, you definitely have it covered under C. Multiple documents contain legal description and consistencies relating to calls for directions of right angles and parallel, so resulting in numerous minimal title gaps and overlaps to resolve this. So yeah, you have a good note on that too. But I was just curious to see the legal description again. So I'm seeing if there was double calls and that kind of stuff.
I mean, more and more I look at these and I think I should just hold those two monuments, come record off of them. A little easier.
It's just with, and that's the thing with today and all the ability to retrace monument blocks, a lot faster. We don't have to necessarily rely on 2 points anymore. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like you say, all the way up until the late 80s, early 90s, where it was just a minimal 2 and 3 points, barely. Like you couldn't even prove out an angle because there was 2 points on the straight line and not even a third for an angle check, right? Like it's so.
I think if you asked Ian Wilson, he'd say that this practice has not entirely stopped.
Yeah, I would imagine you could probably ask most county surveyors that. I understand that, which again, back to this point, is the importance of trying to establish something like this, right? There's so much you can't get boundary knowledge out of an hour and a half conference presentation, right? It's just too much to be able to dive into this. So doing this in a project specific or one boundary thing, I think is going to be so beneficial to do a lot more training and Jerry chiming in with how rules of construction are going to apply to any particular boundary and that kind of stuff. I think as we start to gain some of this experience with everybody.
Can
Some great conversations.
Can I see if I can pull any comments or questions or insults out of anyone who hasn't spoken yet?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, my map's ugly. I hate simplex, so I don't like the font on this map.
Yeah.
How large was the paper size for the map?
Oh, we have to record on 18 by 26 with 1-inch margins, entirely clear. If you want to change that, you should send me an email because I am trying to talk to the CRAC, which is the recorder's equivalent of the CLSA, because I'd like to change sheet sizes and do things digitally. But
well, our CSMs have to be on 8.5 by 14 with a 2.5-inch binding margin on one end and 1-inch margin everywhere else. So you can imagine how many pages our CSMs go on and on for.
Yeah.
I think Lauren was going to chime in.
Yeah, I was just gonna commend you for all the research that you did on this. I think that's pretty cool. It's cool to see the story. My only question is how much, and again, I'm very new at this boundary resolution. Those 2 crosses that were found in the concrete, you said that you found no record of them, correct?
Correct.
So what weight are we supposed to actually give that if we don't have a record of that?
Lauren, you're going to Wisdom Wednesdays tomorrow, right?
That is a great question. I love that.
We'll see.
They're talking about
We're on chapter 6.
He is now.
It's the book is Pincushion Effect by Jeff Lucas, and so if you were to hold these crosses, and that's a really that's kind of like, hey, we found this cross. Some people might hold these crosses. They come over perfectly from this corner, more or less, perfectly within a few hundreds. They would put the line 8/10, further up to the north than I have it here. The existing building over here agrees really well with my solution. So I don't know what that's worth, but basically these crosses are supporting the alternative to the solution that I have come to. I am basically not holding these crosses in any way, shape, or form because I didn't have a record of them. I didn't know where they came from. They didn't agree with the rest of the evidence around the block, and with the only other option would be to hold that, and if I held that and left a gap in this space of 8/10 and then go try to track down the original heirs and assigns of the SH Willie to see if they want their 8/10 by, essentially goes up to here. So it's 8/10 by, 200 feet. And that's a really hard property to build on, but it is worth something. And, that's what Dave Woolley would say do. And that's might be the board answer as well, is that 8/10 by 200 feet should be going to the original owner because it was never actually conveyed. And I cannot read intent into the document to say that, there was another solution to this.
Okay, so why though would you try to determine who gets that 0.8 feet? I thought that that's what we're trying to avoid, but then that doesn't satisfy your client, right?
Well, my client did not get the extra 8/10. So, there is no, my client probably would have been happier with more land. They didn't get it because they are the senior conveyance. This property over here to the south was senior, and the junior, in my case, and this solution, got the rest. If this was a bigger gap, I might say, yeah, we're going to track down the original owner. And I've, attempted to do that on some projects, and, you might have to create a solution in that case by doing some sort of claim of either, well, I've seen it done recently with a prescriptive easement that was created by, it's not adverse possession, but help me, Jerry, you might know what the term is, but so basically through continued and prolonged use of an easement they created.
Yeah, that may be prescriptive, but it could be acquiescence for that matter too.
So, Lauren, for the test, this 8/10 gap here is still the original owners. And I sometimes think about how I should go back and, go track down those original owners and figure this out. For this situation, the question is, and what Ian Wilson would say as the county recorder here is, are you creating harmony or disharmony in the neighborhood if you create this 8/10 gap and somebody comes in and tries to buy, say, hey, that's mine because my great grandfather was S.H. Wiley or whatever, whoever it was sold to 1,000,000 times over.
Well, that was going to be a follow-up question I had. Was there any fence lines or anything that that you're, exactly what you just said, create confusion or?
So the carport here, so this carport right here on the right side of the screen coincides, as close as you're going to get with this northerly line of the parcel. And this area to the north is a parking lot behind 2 frat houses. And over here, there's a little walkway with a wall that, this is a parking lot also. There's a wall that's stepped back enough. So no fences really. I think there's a fence along this line, but it stops at the carport. And so nothing really that useful. If you're going on evidence of occupation, well, then the carport's the best thing in the area, and you would give that 8/10 to these properties to the north.
I think the term we were looking for is to accept it by common report, because it represents a possible location. It's been accepted and used by all the parties that it affects, and it can't really be disproved. As long as it meets those 3 conditions, then you can pretty much accept it by common report.
Did that answer your question at all, Lauren? I don't know if
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess, sometimes adding those to the map, to Lauren's point, may or may not add more confusion too, right? Like, especially if there was no weight to them. Although like your north one, you have weight because it's, 50.02 from the northwest corner of the block. So
Do,
And
do you in California use surveyors reports?
no, I mean, the closest we're getting now is we're trying to, like, a lot of county surveyors are saying, put a narrative on the map, put a narrative on the map, put a narrative on the map.
Yeah,
I started
well,
after, I think Jeff, after Gary Kent's, one of his talks on Mentoring Mondays, I started writing up a little, survey report for the project a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But, I'm not regularly doing it. It'd be nice
Yeah,
to.
yeah, we just introduced that into our administrative code in Wisconsin about 8 years ago or so. And we're starting to see some surveyors use it, but for explaining things like this, rather than try to jam it all onto a map, that pretty soon your map is so overloaded with stuff like that that it's hard to see the forest for the trees. And a surveyor's report is a much better way to explain things like that that aren't really numerical, but are more evaluatory based on the evidence.
That's what this talk is going to be. We're gonna just put the MP4 together and
he's building his defense right now.
what I think is cool about this little group is you can say, hey, yeah, I considered all the options. If you're
Yeah.
presenting a boundary solution and somebody wants to come to you, hey, did you think about this? Yeah, I talked about it with surveyors
Absolutely.
across the country, and these guys know their stuff. And then there's another guy, Kyle, on there who doesn't shut up. But I've got to run in a little bit here because I should be joining. Landon Blake is doing his little group
Oh, cool.
at 5:30. So
Okay.
I've got to run. Just in case anybody wants to put this in front of Dave Woolley, I already have. So he's definitely a guy who has hard opinions on gaps, and Ian's on the other side of that coin, and they're both surveyors who care. That's all I like.
That's it. That's awesome. Great stuff. Glad you were willing to put it out there. And like I said, at least we could play Monday morning quarterback with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, thank you.
it's a lot of fun. But
If I've got a couple future ones that are from more recent jobs, finding 50-foot pin cushions and all these things. And, I'll try to put a few of them together. Some of them are ongoing, some aren't, but I'm finding boundary problems all over the place. I'm very unlucky in that way. And Keith Rose, who joined us on the chat, gets to tear them apart in the county surveyor's office. So
Keith, these are recorded and either tomorrow or worst case Thursday, but I'll have it on. It's going to be on roundtabletuesdays.xyz. These will all be recorded and up on those sessions. And then anybody who wants to provide their presentations and stuff like that, I'll throw it in a Dropbox that's associated with each week as well. But great, fun conversation. The next one I had was we could do one next Tuesday if you guys want, but otherwise I have February 18th. We're kind of in that conference season, so we're jumping around a little bit on weeks here and there, but we can do one next week if you guys want, or we can certainly do it. I have one scheduled for the 18th and then formulate what we want to do on the 18th, or maybe get on social media and see if people's got some burning question that they need answered. So.
Well, I'd prefer maybe skipping the 18th. Give us a little bit of time to advertise this a little bit more and get more people involved in the process. I'll try to put together that little slideshow type of thing or movie that we can maybe post on LinkedIn or on YouTube to get people interested, find out more about this. I'd like to have people come in with their questions, because the whole idea is to provide, some feedback to people with their particular situations and that type of thing if they don't have anyone else to turn to or
Exactly.
aren't sure who to turn to in that. So give us
Yeah.
a little bit of time to build up some mass here.
if somebody has that question before, you know, I can be here next Tuesday to do whatever. If somebody, you know, if you find someone who says, hey, I've got this boundary problem and I need to figure this out, you know,
Yeah.
I'm game for anything. I'm just glad to be,
yeah, I'm glad we get it going.
and be part of this.
Yep. Did you say you skip the 18th or go just do our next one February 18th?
I would skip the 18th, just to give us a little bit more time to get prepped for the next
So we
one.
wouldn't do another one until March?
Is that when the next one was scheduled?
It would be, yeah, if we didn't do February 18th, then we would jump all the way to the middle of March sometime.
Oh, I didn't realize it was gonna be that far.
Yeah. So I think we can jump up some stuff between now and the 18th. We'll get these out and we'll
All
do
right, okay, let's see what happens.
Yep.
All else fails, I got some things I can throw together too.
Trent, can I give a really quick
Absolutely.
public service announcement?
Please.
This is a lime LaCroix and it tastes like vanilla. It is vanilla flavored. They are miscanning their drinks and somebody could get hurt.
Careful.
You can get hurt from a wrong flavor of soda.
No, maybe you're allergic to vanilla. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, I suppose, yeah. Right. Anything's possible, I guess.
Parker, he said he just found the series about 30 minutes before we jumped on here. So this is awesome stuff. Awesome. All right. Well, I'll get stuff. We'll try to do some kind of shorts or something, little short videos as well, Jerry, so we can post this
Okay,
stuff.
I'll work on that in the next couple of days or so.
Yeah. No worries.
Yeah, and
My wife's off on a cruise for 2 weeks, so I'll
Ah.
start having to be in Illinois next week. I can do whatever I want to.
I love it. Jay, what do you think? Got anything you can add, or anything you want to add, or anything you want to present on before you leave us? We got a few more months, but you're muted. Sorry. 5 years later, we're still muted.
Well, Sonny, no.
Yeah, exactly.
I should be up and running probably May or June because I'm gonna take a month and travel the United States before we head south. So
Love it.
I'll keep you updated. If I can find the internet somewhere, I'll get in.
All right, I love it.
Lauren was going to say something, I think, right?
Do you have something else?
I was going to just say that this was very beneficial, and I think a lot of people would enjoy this. I have a decently large network on LinkedIn. I think if you guys are able to put some marketing stuff together, that a bunch of us would be willing to share it and keep it in front of people's eyes. So
Yeah, it goes. I got 1,900 on the Mentoring Mondays email, so it goes there. So then I can kind of boast. I think there's same about 1,900 on the Mentoring Mondays Facebook, so we can kind of post that out. But so it's definitely out there. But I think I created the channels for already on social media for Roundtable. Actually, I know I did. So we'll post on all that kind of stuff as well too. So awesome, everybody.
Thank you for all your hard work, Trent.
Thank you guys.
Really proud of you.
Good job, Kyle.
thank you guys. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Kyle.